In our previous videos, we talked about variables, and in this video, we are going to talk about constants. And later in the video, we are also going to talk about comments in C. So, without further delay, let's dive into it. So, what is a constant? We saw that a variable is something that changes, and it's the value inside of this variable that changes. We also saw that we can change the value of this variable anywhere in our program, while as a constant is something that does not change. So it is the value inside of this constant that will remain fixed, that will not change. In C, there are two ways of defining a constant. One of them is with the help of a constant keyword, and other is with the help of a preprocessor directive known as hash define. Let's first talk about defining a constant with the help of a constant keyword. In case of a variable, to declare a variable, we first write its data type. For example, we write a data type of integer. Then we type the name of the variable. Let's say I name it x, and then we initialize it to some value. And let's say I initialize it to 8. And then we have the terminator. Now this is how you declare and initialize a variable. Similarly, to declare and initialize a constant, all you have to do is to write const before the data type. Now this becomes a constant, and it becomes constant because of this keyword, which is const. Now if I try to print its value, we should get an output of 8. So if I run this, we get an output of 8. In case of a variable, we saw that we can declare a variable in one statement and initialize it in another statement. For example, like this. But that is not the case with constant. So you cannot declare a constant in one statement and initialize it in another statement. So if I run this, this should generate an error. As you can see, we get an error. And if we see the error, it says error assignment of read-only variable x. So it must be declared and initialized in a single statement, which means that we can initialize a constant only once. So after you have initialized this x to a value of 8, we cannot change it later in our program. Hence the name constant. So the value is fixed to one value. And this constant can be of any data type. It can be of type float. So if we change this to, let's say, 4.1, and to display it we need to specify %f. Now if I run this, we should see 4.1 and then these 5 zeros. Similarly, we can also change it to a char. So we can say, let's say y. So if I run this, we should see a value of y. So this means that later we cannot change this value of y to some other value, because this is defined as a constant. There is another way of defining a constant, and that is with the help of a preprocessor directive. So to define a constant with a preprocessor directive, we write a preprocessor directive which is hash define, and then the name of the constant, and this name is usually written in capital letters. So if I write x as capital X and then the value, let's say 56, and let's change this to t and this to capital X. Now if I run this, we should see a value of 56. As you can see, we get a value of 56. And we can also use other types of values. Let's make it a bit meaningful. Let's say I write it as pi, and if you know a value of pi is 3.14, and as we know this is a fractional number, so to print it we use %f. So if I run this, we should see 3.14. As you can see, 3.14 and these 4 zeros. Similarly, we can write a character. Let's give it a name of gender, and let's give it a value of m, which stands for male. So to print it, we type %c. So if I run this, we get an output of m. Similarly, we can change this to f, which stands for female. So if I run this, we get an output of f. And we can do all the operations that we did with the variables, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and so on. So if I quickly define two constants, x as 4 and y as 2, and let's define a third constant, and I am going to assign it to the sum of the two constants. So if I print this z constant, we should get an output of 6. Similarly, we can do other operations like subtraction, division, multiplication, and so on. And now let's talk about comments. There are two types of comments, single line and multi-line. A single line comment is simply specified with these two forward slashes. A comment is nothing but a note or a description of a statement or a set of statements. In our case, if we see the description or a purpose of our comment is to add two constants and store this sum in a third constant. So in this case, we can write it as adding two constants and store their sum in third constant. You can write it before the statement, or you can write it right next to the statement after this terminator. And a C program is always going to ignore the comment, so it's not going to process or execute this line. Instead, it's going to move to the next line. To specify comments in more than one lines, we use multi-line comments, which in C is specified like this. Now you can write multiple comments on different lines. Now before I end this video, I will give you an assignment that you can send on my email, which would be in the description of this video. The assignment is that given a radius of a circle, you have to find its circumference. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care.